16-year-old drivers are more than 20 times as likely to have a car crash than other motorists. 17-year-olds more than 6 times as likely. Many parents are just not fully aware of the graduated driver's license laws with homecoming and dances, fall events, all the football games. Really important now that parents understand what it means when you send your children out, especially if they are driving. And here with more, Potential Magazine publisher Pam Mashburn and Director of Injury Prevention at Alabama Department of Public Health, Richard Burleson. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here. This can be a touchy subject. A lot of people just don't even want to think about the possibility of something like this happening to their young child, but it is what it is. The facts are it can happen.
Yes, there's nothing that injures or kills more adolescents than vehicular crashes. It's their number one risk, so it's one of our number one priorities to make them safer behind the wheel.
Yeah, so how do you do that? How do you propose we do that?
Well, several strategies, but a very important one is the graduated driver's license law, which is a 3-tiered system as opposed to the old 2-tiered system back when I got my driver's license. We passed our graduated driver's license law in 2002, amended it in 2010, and just this year made the latest amendments, which will go into effect November 1st.
Okay, and again, where you were saying the previous, it was if you were a 15-year-old, you got your permit, you had to drive for a certain amount of time, and then you were allowed to, at 16, if you had that many hours behind the wheel, then you were allowed to go ahead and take your driver's test, and if you passed it, then you had your driver's license, you were ready to go. But now there's a few more steps. So talk to us a little bit about what that graduated driver's license means.
Well, and I know that Richard was telling me that now instead of 20 or 30, is it 30 hours?
It was 30
hours. Now it's 50 hours because one of the big keys is just practicing. And I think that statistic where it showed that when they become 17, just that 1 year helps reduce the number of crashes because they get that practice.
Absolutely.
But you know, there's some other things about the graduated driver's license that a lot of us parents, I mean, I didn't realize it until I started working with Potential Magazine.
Okay.
And it's things like there's a curfew between 12 from midnight to 6 a.m.
They're not supposed to be
drive.
driving. Yeah.
With certain exceptions.
Yeah, and like if they're working or there's an emergency, but coming home from the homecoming dance at 2 a.m. is
in general,
probably
they're not supposed to be driving during those hours, 12 and 6. And also, I can remember when I was a teenager that I was like, you need a ride, get in here. I mean, it was just a carload of kids sometimes, and that's a no-no too.
It is a no-no. And you know, even I've been guilty of having my older kids, okay, can you go pick up your brother and his friends from football?
Right.
You know, and carpooling. But really the rule is until they're 17, they're not supposed to have another, they're only allowed one other passenger that's outside of their family.
Yeah.
So that means no double dating. Yeah. You know, sorry about that until you're 17.
That's right.
Well, and the thing is, you have to consider that things are different now. There's a lot more traffic on the roads out there, a lot more distractions that they have.
And I think that's the key.
And it's really a distraction. And I like what you said too about that 1 year making such a huge difference, because I don't worry so much about my son who just got his driver's license. It's just that he has to learn how to react to other people. He might know all the rules of the road and do everything right, but you have to be ready to react to what other people do.
Yeah, driving is a skill, and like any skill, you only get better with practice, and that's why it's so important. The single most effective strategy for a parent to make their child a better driver is to spend hours with them behind the wheel while they have that learner's permit.
Yeah.
The more hours, the safer they're going to be in general.
And even when they get that driver's license, it's just so hard for me to be in the car with him sometimes, because I'm thinking, even when I'm driving, of a situation that I find myself in that I know how to work around because I've been driving for so long. I wonder, would AJ be able to handle that if somebody did the same thing to him? It's scary. It really is.
And a guy that I look to is John Schmidt, John and Debbie Schmidt, because they have 3 kids, and he's a local minister, and he said, why would I want my child to go drive in Atlanta by themselves? Like, I want to be next to them. Or why would I want them to take that first thunderstorm by themselves? And it is. I mean, I was with my son going into Auburn. It was pouring down rain on 85.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, wait, you got to slow down and you got to put your hazards. And he didn't know any of that.
Yeah.
So as parents, it's nerve-wracking to not have that brake pedal, to hit. But
even though I pretend that I'm hitting the brake over there on the other side. And the thing too that we talk about too are things like deer coming out in the road. Anything can happen, but that's where they're going to learn, is with you in the car with them. And
the best place for them to learn.
Yeah, the best place for them to learn is there. So and another thing too we want to mention that's real hard, and parents, you have to be an example when you talk about this, is not to have those handheld devices in the car with you.
And not just in Montgomery, but that's for the whole whole state.
Yes.
So-
Anybody under the restricted license. Yes.
All right.
And you said at 17 they can graduate. They still have to, even at 17, they have to have had the restricted license for at least 6 months. So
okay.
some of
Good
them
to
think
know.
they can wait till later to get their license and miss all the
skip over
restrictions.
that part?
You still have to
Can't
fulfill the
miss it.
restrictions, and
That's
that was
right.
clarified further in the latest amendment.
Yeah,
But
and that's the thing about you. You hear the worst case scenarios. You know the numbers, and you realize that this is something that you really have to adhere to. You don't want to be one of those statistics that you hear
Absolutely.
about.
Our state child death review system reviews in depth all of these crashes. And but between 1996 and 2011, every state in the nation passed a graduated driver's license law of some kind. And the National Institutes for Health have done extensive studies, and they've shown an 8 to 14% decrease in teen crashes across all of those
So
states.
it's effective.
Yeah, we got to get that down.
Yeah, and if you go to the Potential Magazine website, there is a contract that you can kind of sit down with your child and say, this is the law, this is our expectations, and kind of spell it out for them and say, I'm taking the keys.
There's
if you
a
can't do it.
conversation starter right there.
Right.
If you're wondering how you can approach this conversation, there's a way to do it. How do they get to your website?
Potentialmagazine.com.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Great
you.
information as usual. Good
Yes,
to see you. Thank
and also
you so
they can go
much.
to our Alabama Department of Public Health website. We have a page set up specifically for teen driving.
Well,
Oh,
there you
good.
go. Good,
Yes.
good sources of information.